Did you know that some pets literally can't understand the word no because their brains process sounds completely differently than ours? Your frustration with that counter-surfing cat might be totally misplaced. Ever watched your dog snatch food from the table seconds after you've sternly said no? You're not alone. Across the globe, pet owners are locked in an eternal battle with animals who seem to have selective hearing when it comes to this simple command. But what if I told you it's not entirely their fault? Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of pets who just don't seem to understand the concept of no and the surprising science behind their apparent rebellion. Let's start with our canine companions. Dogs are masters at reading human emotion, capable of understanding up to 250 words and gestures. But here's the thing. When you say no to a dog, they're often processing multiple signals simultaneously. They're not just hearing the word. They're reading your facial expression, body language, tone of voice, and even your scent changes from emotional shifts. This means your dog isn't ignoring you. They're actually experiencing sensory overload. Studies from the University of Vienna have found that dogs process human commands through a complex filter of contextual cues, which explains why your pup might obey perfectly during training, but completely forget when there's a squirrel nearby. Cats take this selective hearing to an entirely different level. Unlike dogs who evolved alongside humans for over 30,000 years, domestic cats have only lived with us for about 10,000 years and retained much more of their wild independence. Research from Tokyo University discovered that cats can recognize their names and common commands, but choose to acknowledge them only about 30% of the time. It's not that they don't understand no. They simply perform a rapid cost-benefit analysis of whether listening to you is worth their while. Animal behaviorists call this cooperative disobedience, a uniquely feline trait that helped wildcats survive by balancing human benefits with independent decision-making. Perhaps the most surprising no resistors are parrots. These intelligent birds can learn hundreds of words, but their understanding is fundamentally different from ours. When you tell a parrot no, they might actually be hearing what they consider an invitation to the exact behavior you're trying to stop. This is because parrots are naturally attracted to excitement and emotional responses. The more animated you become saying no, the more interesting that forbidden activity becomes. One study from the University of Georgia found that parrots were 3 times more likely to repeat behaviors that generated strong owner responses, regardless of whether those responses were positive or negative. Rabbits present another fascinating case. These fluffy creatures have evolved as prey animals, which means their brains are wired to freeze or flee rather than process verbal commands. When you say no to a rabbit chewing your baseboards, their brain is busy calculating escape routes rather than parsing human language. Rabbit experts from the House Rabbit Society have documented that rabbits respond about 70% better to redirection techniques than to verbal corrections alone. So if your bunny keeps ignoring your commands, it's likely because their survival instincts are literally overriding their ability to process your words. Small rodent pets like hamsters and guinea pigs might be the ultimate no ignorers. Their tiny brains simply don't have the neural architecture to connect human words with specific behaviors. Instead, they operate primarily on instinct and simple association. A study in applied animal behavior science found that rodents respond best to consistent patterns rather than verbal corrections. Your hamster isn't being naughty when it continues to stuff its cheeks with food you've tried to limit. It's following deeply ingrained survival mechanisms that have kept its species alive for millions of years. The reptile world takes not understanding no to spectacular new heights. When you scold your bearded dragon or leopard gecko for making a mess, you might as well be speaking to your houseplant. Reptiles process the world through an entirely different sensory system than mammals. They literally cannot connect your words to their actions in any meaningful way. However, research from the University of Tennessee has shown that reptiles can recognize patterns, and even individual humans. They just process this information in ways completely alien to our understanding. So while your pet iguana might seem to be deliberately ignoring you, they're actually experiencing reality through a completely different cognitive framework. Fish owners often laugh about the 3-second memory myth, which isn't actually true. But there's something fascinating about how aquatic pets process commands. Fish can recognize patterns and even their owners, but their brains process information through lateral lines and other sensory systems completely foreign to land animals. Marine biologists have documented that fish can be conditioned to respond to certain stimuli, but verbal commands like no simply don't register in their underwater world. The next time your goldfish swims right into the decoration you just moved, remember they're experiencing your tank through pressure waves and chemical signals, not human language. Even traditionally trainable pets like horses have fascinating reasons for seemingly ignoring no. Equine specialists have found that horses, despite their intelligence, process negative commands differently than positive ones. When you tell a horse no, you're actually triggering what trainers call the opposition reflex, a natural instinct to push against pressure rather than yield to it. This is why experienced horse trainers focus on redirecting unwanted behaviors, rather than simply saying no. Your horse isn't being stubborn. They're demonstrating an evolutionary trait that helped their wild ancestors survive by breaking free from predators. Ferrets might be the ultimate masters of selective hearing. These playful carnivores have been domesticated for over 2,500 years, but they've maintained their mischievous independence throughout. Ferret behavior specialists have documented that these animals can understand basic commands, but prioritize their own interests about 80% of the time. Their natural curiosity and tunneling instincts often override any training you might attempt. When your ferret steals your keys for the 15th time, despite your increasingly frustrated no's, remember that they're following hardwired behaviors that made them excellent hunting companions for our ancestors. So what does all this mean for frustrated pet owners? Understanding why your pet seems to ignore no is the first step toward more effective communication. Instead of repeating the same command with increasing volume, try working with your pet's natural instincts. For dogs, clear, consistent signals with immediate rewards work better than verbal corrections. For cats, environmental modifications often succeed where commands fail. And for all pets, redirecting unwanted behaviors to acceptable alternatives creates lasting changes that simple prohibitions never will. The next time your pet seems to be deliberately ignoring your no, remember that they're not being willfully disobedient. They're experiencing your command through an entirely different sensory and cognitive system. Their apparent rebellion isn't personal. It's a fascinating window into how different species experience and interpret the world around them. By adapting our communication to work with their natural instincts rather than against them, we can build stronger bonds with our animal companions, even the ones who seem to have no permanently excluded from their vocabulary. Which pet in your life seems to have the strongest no filter? Share your funniest stories in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more fascinating insights into the weird and wonderful world of animal behavior. I promise your pets won't say no to more videos like this one.